Good evening, everyone. Now call to order this meeting, the Lancaster City Council for August 13th, 2024. A couple of reminders here at the top of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. This is an excellent opportunity to silence your phones or other devices if you haven't done so already. This evening, there will be several opportunities for public comment. If you wish to make comment during those times, please do so at the podium and speak into the microphone so that you can be heard both in this room and on our live stream. Comments should begin with your full name and block of residence for the meeting record. Comment should pertain to issues that have or may come before council as legislation and should be addressed toward council. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. To keep time, you will see this light here turn green when you begin. It will turn yellow when there's a minute remaining, and it will turn red when 3 minutes has been exhausted. Thank you in advance for ensuring that there's equal time for everyone. And now for all of those who are willing and able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Harris, would you please call the roll of members?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Ahmed.
Here.
Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Mr. Cleese.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Hirsch.
Here.
And President Baker.
Here. Our next item is the approval of the minutes of the July 9th, 2024 meeting of council.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any council comments on the minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ahmed.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. The next item are proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. I don't believe we have any of those this evening. Is that right, Mr. Harris?
That's correct, Madam President.
Thank you very much. We then go on to our first public comment period. This is reserved for residents who have contacted the city clerk in advance of the meeting to request the opportunity to speak to council. Again, comments are limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Harris, do we have public comment for this period this evening?
Yes, we do, Madam President. We have one. Ben Cattell-Knoll.
Mr. Knoll, good evening. Just make sure that green light.
Thank you. Yeah, we're on.
Yep.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Ben Cattell-Knoll. I'm a resident of North Charlotte Street. I'm here tonight in regards to the recent clearing of people residing in Binns Park. Certainly, just for starters, that park should never be someone's home. In the richest nation in the world, in a prosperous community where thousands of brand new luxury apartments are going up every day, we can do better. And while I appreciate the efforts the city and all of you have done to fund affordable housing and the dedication to homeless services over the years, the fact is it's still not enough. There are not enough affordable permanent housing units, housing interventions, or even temporary shelters for everyone who is without a home in our community today. It's nowhere close even. And so with the closure of 80 low barrier shelter beds throughout this year, it's no surprise that there are more people outside today than ever. I know that some help is on the way, but in the interim, we must find solutions to keep people safe and healthy that does not involve displacing them and shuffling them around from neighborhood to neighborhood and park to park across the city. Every major homeless organization, including the National Alliance to End Homelessness, the National Coalition for the Homeless, the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, and many others say that sweeps are not the answer to homeless encampments. Not only are they not the answer, they actively cause more harm to those already most marginalized. A recent Journal of the American Medical Association article found a significant increase in deaths due to forced relocations in a modeling exercise focused on people who use drugs. In a community, our community, where 4% of people are Black, 26% of people experiencing homelessness across Lancaster County are Black. So homelessness is a racial justice issue, and criminalizing homelessness furthers the already stark racial disparities in our criminal punishment system. I am not clear how, what I read about this morning, what I've seen is being enforced. I am curious if citations or fines or jail time are part of that enforcement. I hope not, but I'm wondering how that is enforced and hope to get a little more information on that. But we know what works better. Involving trusted homeless service organizations in planning encampment resolutions in order to build trust and ensure sure vital connections are not severed is one thing. Making sure that every person is offered some kind of connection to temporary shelter at a bare minimum, but ideally permanent housing, is another best practice. And of course, involving the people most impacted by this decision in the decision-making process to ensure they have a voice is critical. It's not clear to me that any of this is happening in Lancaster's response to Binns Park, which is disappointing and unacceptable. I am wondering who is making the policy decisions to move forward with these encampment sweeps. What are they basing those decisions off of? What are their qualifications? Who are they consulting on this about when, why, and how to clear these encampments? Frequently, law enforcement responses to homelessness are not only more harmful, they are also more expensive than solving the problem. So I'm also curious about what the costs are to the city of these clearings. There are better ways. Your colleagues in Allentown recently passed legislation in response to the Supreme Court decision in the Johnson v. Grants Pass decision that clarified that being homelessness in Allentown is not a crime and establishes people's rights to equitably use public space. So I will send that to all of you after this meeting. I hope at least one of you is brave enough to introduce this as soon as possible because we can't wait.
I just want to let you know the 3 minutes has
Thank you.
passed, but I do appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. I do believe that Mayor Scratchy has some updates on that, that she might plan to give in her comments later, but now would be an excellent time for those.
I didn't. I just want to reiterate that this wasn't at Binns Park. This is at 150, which is the government center, and I know that there's a lot of confusion about that. I will also say that there was no citations, jails, or fines given, and that this was an action that was coordinated very closely with the Lancaster County Homelessness Coalition and the outreach staff who worked with individuals. And it came after a spike in a lot of safety concerns related to some stabbings and assault. And it was widely understood among law enforcement, the county, the city, and the social services that that situation was untenable for the safety and public health of the individuals that were there. I will also just say that it is, I agree that we need a better interim solution until we can get to the additional low barrier shelter beds. And unfortunately, that is not feasible at this time. And I would encourage you to please continue to have conversations with the Lancaster County Homelessness Coalition and to know that, this was an effort in which there is continued coordination, and there were several people that, out of the steps that were taken beginning last week, went into rehabilitation or were reunited with their families. And so we continue to work toward those goals.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harris, do we have any additional comments for this public comment period?
We do not, Madam President.
Thank you. We now move to reports requested by council. I don't believe we have any of those this evening. Is that correct, Mr. Harris?
That is correct, Madam President.
Thank you. We'll move then to the reports of the committees of council. These are the meetings held on August 5th, 2024. We'll begin with Public Safety. Councilor Diaz.
The Safety Committee did not read.
Thank you. Public Works Committee. Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Committee did meet on August 5th and heard 3 items, all of which appear on our council agenda later this evening. The first item is Resolution 59, 2024, authorizing execution of a right-of-way easement with Verizon for a cell phone tower on city property. Additionally, Public Works heard Resolution 61 and 62, both of which authorize the city to submit grant applications for the South Ann and Juniata Streetscapes project and the pedestrian safety planning pertaining to safe routes to schools, respectively. That concludes the report of the Public Works Committee.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hirsch. Economic Development Committee. Councilor Ahmed.
Thank you, Council President. The Economic Development Committee did not meet in our last session.
Thank you. Finance Committee. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee did meet during our last session. We had 2 items on our agenda. The first was the Lancaster Public Library 2025 budget request and presentation. John Heinley, the Director of Donor Advising for the Lancaster Public Library, provided an update on the activities of the library and presented a request for the library's funding in the city's 2025 budget. In addition, we had the operating budget financial update as of Q2 of the year. This report highlighted the city being ahead in revenue for the year and spending less at this point in the year than anticipated. That concludes my report, Council President.
Thank you very much. Community Planning Committee, Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. During the committee meeting, we had one item on the agenda, which will come up later on the legislative agenda this evening, along with several others.
Thank you very much. And Personnel Committee, Councilor Cleese.
Thank you, Madam President. Personnel Committee met on August 5th and reviewed nominations for reappointment to the Civil Service Board and to the Board of Plumbing Examiners. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll now move into our legislative agenda for this evening. The first item are legislative budget transfers. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. As you're aware, the city is self-insured for workers' compensation costs. Every year, funds to pay workers' compensation claims are included in the individual department budgets, but those claims are paid from the administrative services budget. So each quarter, we shift money from the departments where those injured workers have made claims to the administrative services budget to cover the costs. For the second quarter of the year, workers' comp claims were made by city firefighters and police officers. A total of $15,704.66 is being moved from those department budgets to administrative services. Because this money is being moved from between departments, this requires city council approval. So I make a motion to approve the second quarter workers' compensation transfers totaling $15,704.66 as proposed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the budget transfers. Are there any additional council comments on the transfers? Comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Madden.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
President Benge.
Aye. The next item are nominations for appointment. Councilor Cleese.
Thank you, Madam President. As I said earlier in my report, the nominations for reappointment to the Civil Service Board and the Board of Plumbing Examiners were reviewed by the Personnel Committee and Council as a whole. Now I'll make a motion to reappoint Rosa Gupera to the Civil Service Board for a 4-year term from July 31st, 2024 to July 31st, 2028, and Rick Weiss, Chad Walton, Barry Sather, Sean Way, and Trent Myers to the Board of Plumbing Examiners for a 1-year term from September 12, 2024 to September 12, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for these appointments. Are there any council comments on the appointments? Yes, and, I'm sorry about that. We have, Ms. Gropera is here. We thank you for joining us. Would you like to come forward and address council? You certainly may. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
At our regular meeting, since you were unable to come to the committee meeting. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
And this is a reappointment, is that correct, Councilor Cleese?
Yes.
Terrific.
All right.
Yes.
So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to continue to serve the city as best as I can. I felt that it was originally I had decided that I probably needed to give somebody else a chance, but I am retiring this year and I felt that I needed to keep busy. So, this committee will definitely keep me busy. So, I'm more than happy and honored to be asked again. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for stepping forward and doing that and for volunteering your time. It takes many community members to fill these positions that are incredibly important, and we appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Any additional council comments?
Council President, I would also
Councilor
like
Madden.
to send my thanks for stepping up and continuing to serve the city of Lancaster.
Thank you.
And just want to say congratulations on your upcoming retirement.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
Again. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Madden.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
And President Benge.
Aye. Okay, the next item on our legislative agenda this evening are Heritage Conservation and Historic District items. Mr. Harris, I believe, Councilor Craig, just to confirm, your wish is to take these items together, is that right?
Correct.
All right, Mr. Harris.
Tom and Carrie Rainier, owners of 335 Ruby Street, propose demolition of the rear wing on a main house and a freestanding...
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I will speak up. Tom and Carrie Rainier, owners of 335 Ruby Street, propose demolition of a rear wing on a main house and a freestanding garage to allow proposed new construction. Tom and Carrie Rainier, owners of 335 Ruby Street, propose construction of a new addition to the rear of the house and a new freestanding two-story accessory residential building on the parcel. City Crossing Unit Owners Association, owners of 354 North Prince Street, propose removal of a small upper portion of a non-structural brick wall. Integrity First Capital, owners of 221, 227 North Prince Street, propose rehabilitation of the west brick facade of 227 North Prince Street to include replacement windows. Nicholas Collado, owner of 338 Stevens Avenue, proposes installation of a manufactured dwelling to the rear of the parcel. Spanish American Civic Association, owners of 50 East New Street, propose construction of a new three-story stair tower on the building's west elevation. And those applications are all recommended for approval by the Historical Commission. Jeffrey and Carrie Eshelman, owners of 423 West Walnut Street, request construction of a new freestanding two-bay garage on open ground at the north edge of the parcel facing Lancaster Avenue. And Jeffrey and Carrie Eshelman, owners of 423 West Walnut Street, request construction of a new two-story addition to the northeast elevation of the existing dwelling house. And those applications were recommended for approval by the Historical Architectural Review Board.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. At this time, if there is anyone here representing any of these properties that would give us a little background on some of the properties, maybe something that we don't know, I invite you to the podium at this time. And let us know which property you're going to be addressing.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Paul Miller, owner of 227 North Prince Street. And what we're looking to do is rehabilitate the west wall facade facing Prince Street. It's in serious state of decay. So we're looking to repoint, replace, whatever needs to be done to basically rebuild that from the first story level to the top.
Excellent. Are there any questions from council?
Councilor Craig, if I may. Thank you for coming to speak to us tonight. What are the plans for this property, and what is the timeline for the plans for the improvements?
So it's looking to turn into a multi-unit apartment complex. We're looking to start, the demolition has started already. We have a demolition permit. Looking to obtain the, hopefully the scaffolding and street permit actually this week, and get the rest of the permits here in 1 to 2 weeks from now. So hoping to complete the project in the beginning to middle of 2025.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from council? Questions from the public?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. Irene Grievous on the 400 block of West End Avenue. My question is, may I ask, congratulations, by the way, may I ask how many permits you had to apply for?
Ms. Rivas, these comments should be directed toward members of
Oh, okay, no,
the other members.
oh, that's fine. I would like to know how many permits did it take to approve the permit application? Or how many attempts were made to approve the permit application?
Thank you for the question. If you want to be seated, then I'll have.
Do you have any additional comments? for your
No,
time?
no,
Okay.
I do have some of that information in front of me, so I just want to make sure there wasn't anything further.
okay, that's fine.
According to the information that council was provided regarding the certificate of appropriateness recommendation, that's actually a good question. I apologize. I thought maybe there was some notes in here about a number of times that the person came to the historical commission. I don't have that information in front of me. Thought I did. Sorry about that.
Well, the gentleman's right here. Surely he can respond if he's permitted to.
If he wishes, he can answer that.
That's fine. Are you,
I can answer that. I've been living in the property since September, and
once?
I know there's been a lot of history with previous ownership, but I personally have come once.
Congratulations. Because for most others like me, that's not always the case. For most others, that's not the case. In my case,
Ms.
it's been
Rivas,
10
council
permits.
comment should
Oh,
be
okay.
addressed to council.
All right, no, that's
Thank you very
fine.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other property owners that want to address their project?
I don't believe there. Here we go. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Doug Phillips. I'm with DCPA Architects, and I'm representing Carrie and Jeff Eshelman. Just a note, the city clerk mentioned that it was 423 Walnut. It's actually 423 West Chestnut. I, along with Scott Payton of Citadel DCA Architects, have been hired by Jeff and Carrie Eshelman to provide design and project direction for the restoration and renovations of the former Wolf Museum and Art Museum located at 423 West Chestnut. The new owners plan to restore and renovate the former museum into their private residence. In addition to the restoration and interior renovations of the main residence, a 245 square foot two-story addition is proposed on the southeast corner of the residence to accommodate a new kitchen on the first floor and a master bath on the second floor. A 984 square foot detached carriage house that will accommodate 2 motor vehicles is also proposed. After 3 meetings with HARB, recommendations and neighborhood considerations were implemented in the revised design, resulting in HARB's issuance of certificate of appropriateness. I'm here on behalf of our clients, respectfully asking for City Council's approval.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from council? Questions from the public?
Irene Grievous, and it's basically the same questions, or the same question. How many permit applications did it take for it to be approved?
Thank you. Now, if the,
That's the only question.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
thank you. If the gentleman chooses to answer, he may.
Permit applications have yet to be issued. We are still waiting for the approval of City Council before we can move forward with the project.
So in this case, your project, the permits haven't been applied for?
No.
Okay, which is often the case. Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from the public? Thank you.
Right,
You ready for the,
hearing no further, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Madden.
Aye.
Mr. Roy.
Aye.
Mr. Please.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
aye.
Ms. Diaz. Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
President Baker.
Aye.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you very much, Councilor Craig. The next item on our legislative agenda is item D. These are ordinances for final passage. First and only being Administration Bill number 8, 2024. Mr. Harris.
An ordinance authorizing the incurrence of non-electoral debt of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, by the issuance of blank principal amount of general obligation bonds, series of 2024, issued for the purpose of providing funds for the design, planning, and construction of additions, improvements, and extraordinary repairs with respect to water fund capital projects, together with the acquisition of related machinery and equipment and necessary real estate rights and interests, providing funds to acquire a pumping station for the city's water system, including the acquisition of land to expand the water reservoir, and other capital projects as determined by the city, to pay capitalized interest on the 2024 bonds, and to pay the cost of issuance of the series of 2024 bonds, determining to sell the series of 2024 bonds at a private sale by invitation, approving the form of the series of 2024 bonds, fixing the number, date, interest, and maturities of the 2024 bonds, making a covenant for the payment of the debt service on the 2024 bonds, pledging the full faith, credit, and taxing power of this city in support of such bonds, providing for the filing of required documents, providing for the appointment of a sinking fund depository for the 2024 bonds, and authorizing execution, sale, and delivery thereof, and other necessary action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Very,
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. This ordinance was one of two ordinances that came before council seeking either debt financing or bond financing. Bond council has provided each of us with a black line version of the ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance of the general obligation bonds, series of 2024 in an original principal amount equal to $8,410,000. Such ordinance was introduced as Administration Bill Number 8, 2024 before this council on June 25th, 2024. I hereby move to amend the ordinance labeled Administration Bill Number 8, 2024 to include the additions, deletions, and other changes referenced on such black line version of the ordinance, which will be reworded with the minutes of this meeting and which can be summarized as follows. In the fourth line of the caption, deleting $_ and replacing it with $8,410,000. In the second whereas clause, adding in the second whereas clause, adding, quote, the estimated completion date of the project is December 2024, end quote, at the end of the clause. In the third whereas clauses, deleting the reference to, quote, $_ end quote, and replacing it with $8,410,000. Inserting into the fifth whereas clause the name Bancroft Capital LLC as the purchaser. In the sixth whereas clause, deleting the reference to, quote, $_ end quote, and replacing it with $8,759,044.30. In section 1 of the ordinance, deleting the amount of, quote, $_ end quote, and replacing it with $8,410,000 as the amount of indebtedness authorized by the ordinance. In section 2 of the ordinance, deleting the amount of, quote, $_ end quote, and replacing it with $8,410,000 as the aggregate principal amount of general obligation bonds, series of 2024 authorized by the ordinance. In section 9 of the ordinance, inserting the optional redemption provisions of the bonds as the bonds which are stated to mature on or after November 1st, 2023, are subject to redemption prior to maturity at the option of the city in whole or in part on November 1, 2032, or any date thereafter. In section 9 of the ordinance, deleting the term bond provisions in the accordance with the winning bid, on Exhibit A, attaching the form of the bond, and on Exhibit B, attaching the amortization schedule as provided by the purchaser, and a copy of the proposal of the purchaser has been attached to the ordinance as Exhibit C.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council, this is a motion to amend the first motion. Any additional comment from our Director of Administrative Services, Director Campbell?
I will just make a couple of quick comments, just as a reminder for what this financing is for. And Daryl is passing out some more details that he will talk about in a minute as well. So as mentioned, this is the second reading of the ordinance. This is the issuance of a bond for two different things, a lease buyout and reimbursement of land acquisition costs. The land acquisition costs were, it's an expense that was a repayment to the ARPA funds for the land that we acquired in 2021 for the water system. And that amount of debt is approximately $6.4 million. Daryl will give more details on that. And then the second piece of the debt is related to a pump station, which is also part of the water infrastructure system. This is, we have been paying a lease. A private company built the pump for us, and we are paying that lease out with this debt. So the amount of that lease buyout is approximately $2.4 million. And I'm going to ask Daryl Peck, our financial consultant, to come and talk about the details of the document that he just gave you.
Thank you. Mr. Peck, thank you for being here this evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to continue to work with the city. I'm going to start with, Tina already gave the quick introduction to the purpose of the financing. I'll say it one more time. The amount of the bonds will be $8,410,000. The land acquisition cost is about $5.9 million, and the water system pump station cost is about $2.3 million. So for those of you who have been on council before, the process that we go through, we were here with the Finance Committee back in June. At that point in time, we talked about we might do a bank loan, we might do a bond issue. Through that process, we went through a request for proposals to a number of banks, over 30. When we compared the best proposal we got there to a bond issue, the bond issue was more favorable, so obviously that's what we proceeded with. So fast forward to the past couple of weeks, or months for that matter, we got the city's bond rating updated or renewed. Actually, that was about 3 months ago. Great news on that process. The city maintains its rating at an A3, but its outlook was increased or improved from what was a negative outlook to a stable outlook. So that's obviously great news for the city. Shows fiscal responsibility, et cetera, and improvements. So, great news for the city in that regard. We put together an offering document, which we provided to Mr. Harris. I don't know if he was able to provide it to council. This is the offering document that has a lot of great information on the city, background, economic, demographic, financial information. So certainly it's there for your kind of use and review. Don't get too bored reading some of the fine print, but certainly there's a lot of good information about the city in there. If you see anything that says, gee whiz, that I have a question to that, please get that to Mr. Harris, and he can certainly coordinate with us as necessary. Don't expect it, but obviously I want to give that opportunity. So what happened today? We have a bond auction for the city. Some people refer to it as sort of eBay for bonds, where we go out and really offer the bonds of the city really to every bond underwriting firm in the country. And that's usually for a period of about 15 minutes. Tina actually reviewed it and observed it today. I'm sure it was very exciting. So in that period of time, it's crazy. All the activity actually happens kind of real time, live time, in about 5 minutes, even though it's a 15-minute auction. So today, the first bid came in at about 11.09. The initial interest rate at that point was 4.26%. About 3 or 4 minutes later, what ultimately was the best bid came in from Bancroft Capital at a rate of 3.857%. We did get a number of bids after that, but none of them were higher or better than, or lower interest rate than the Bancroft bid that we received. So certainly when we get to the end of this presentation, we're certainly going to recommend moving forward with the Bancroft proposal. Just to put this in perspective, if you're looking at page 1, Bancroft was the best proposal. So we got 4 bidders. We actually got 20 bids because some people improved their bids. And actually some of these or at least one of these firms, deals in what's called a syndicate. So they're actually working with other underwriters as well. So when I say there was 4 bidders, there's actually 27 firms that are actually kind of looking at at purchasing your bonds at obviously the best interest rate. So the highest final rate we got was 3.857 from Bancroft. The highest rate at the end was from Robert Baird at 3.89%. That's about 0.04%. That equates to about $40,000. But remember the rate I told you first, 426. The difference between the best rate we got at 385 and the 426, that's over $400,000. So obviously why you go through this process and knowing that you got the best interest rate that was available to the city today. So with that, I will move forward to next page of my presentation. I try to keep this now kind of the theme of what you saw when we were at Finance Committee. So the first page is more of a narrative, and then there's a lot of numbers behind here. Obviously, I got to show them to you, but we don't need to go over those in great detail. So again, the plan of finance for these 2 main purposes will be shown on the next page. I didn't make it redundant. The terms of financing components, the land cost reimbursement, obviously you're purchasing new land, so we did that for a repayment term of 20 years. Think of it as, kind of dirt land, kind of lasts forever. So it's certainly appropriate to finance it over a 20-year term. The pump station, we're going to repay that portion over 12 years. That pump station is 10 years old. So again, from an appropriate useful life standpoint, if you think of it about being about 20, 25 years, if not more, we're going to repay that portion over 12 years, and we're going to keep the integrity of each of those components when you see this later. And on the repayment structures and budgetary impacts, for the land portion, which is really the new debt, if you will, there's going to be no budgetary impact in the rest of 2024. There'll be no impact in 2025, and really the reason for that is to give time for the PUC rate case process. Then full budgetary impact of principal and interest will begin in 2026. And the estimated annual debt service for this piece beginning in 2026 will be about $475,000. When we were here back at budget, obviously, I like to put out conservative numbers. The estimated annual debt service back then was about $525,000, so much better end result than what we talked about originally. The pump station portion, I want to stress here, and Tina alluded to it, this is an existing lease, meaning it's not a new debt or not a new obligation to the city. So, I mean, you're already paying for this in the more so as an operating expense in the lease. So that pump station is currently being leased and operated by the city. The existing lease payments are about $268,000 for the existing obligation. For this component, the full impact will begin in 2025. The estimated annual debt service for this is about $240,000. So really, you're going to have budgetary savings, if you will, by really reducing the interest rate on the financing versus the lease by about $26,000. And both of these components are expected to be paid out of the water fund. So that's, again, is kind of a recap of what we talked about at the June Finance Committee meeting. So on to the more so fine print numbers, but all the detail behind this. On page 3 are the plan of finance. Again, the land costs are about $5.9 million. The water infrastructure of the pump station is about $2.3 million. Together with the capitalized interest, have no impact on the land acquisition component, and including and financing all the related costs, you're going to issue about $8,410,000. So that's really all the sources and uses for this financing. Page 4 is the 20-year repayment schedule for the land acquisition portion only. If you scroll over to the right in column 11, again, the annual debt service of this piece will be about the $475,000 beginning in 26, and keeping at that same payment out through 2044. On page 5 is the pump station component, again stressing that this portion in and of itself will be repaid over 12 years. The annual debt service on the right-hand side of this component is about $242,000. And then page 6 just brings the two components together, for kind of one single debt service schedule. It was important we keep these separate, both for you to see, hey, yes, we're paying these off in the respective period of times, and then also administratively, they can kind of track the two pieces independently, but still have a common plan of finance. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that you might have. Your bond counsel, Rhonda Lord from Saxon and Stumps here, and she can certainly answer any questions about the ordinance, but I guess I'll pause here for a second, see if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I do, not a question, I just want to reiterate something that you mentioned, because I think it's an important part to highlight in this. Well, actually, two things. One, to confirm that this debt service is all part of the water fund, not general or any other of the enterprise funds. And two, the land portion, the larger, has no impact until 2026 on our debt service budget. Confirming those two things.
That is correct.
That I'm seeing and I'm hearing.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Any other council comments or questions? Thank you very much. Comments or questions from the public on the motion to amend? Okay. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Madam President, on the motion to amend. Mr. Mann.
Aye.
Mr. Roy.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. We'll now return to the original motion to approve. This is for Bill 8, 2024. Any additional council comments on the bill? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Mann.
Aye.
Mr. Roy.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
President Baker.
Aye. I'd like to thank our bond counsel, Mr. Peck, Tina Campbell, Director of Administrative Services, for your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that bond auctions are exciting, so. We'll now move to item E on our agenda. Those are resolutions, beginning with Administration Resolution Number 59, 2024. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the proper officials of the city to execute and enter into an antenna site right-of-way grant agreement, providing for the unilateral grant of right-of-way to be given to Verizon Pennsylvania LLC as a utility easement for the construction of an antenna facilities on city property located at 1836 rear Lincoln Highway East, Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. This is coming through Public Works. Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Council President. This resolution actually came at the request of Verizon Pennsylvania. They're looking to receive this easement agreement to operate a cell tower placed on the water tower that exists at 1836 Lincoln Highway East, which is in East Lampeter Township. Made specifically, they made this request specifically because the property is not located in the city, but located in East Lampeter Township, adjacent to the city, and effectively wanted council's approval, just because I guess it's typically the only cost that the city would, or sorry, let me back up. Basically just clarifying this agreement. Normally it would just be a contract, but because the property doesn't actually fall within the city limits, they were looking for this specifically. The only cost that the city would incur would be the cost of relocation if the city were to force them out of the agreement. It's very unlikely that the city would do such a thing, given that we're going to enjoy leased income off of the cell tower at no additional cost to the city. So it's kind of a slam dunk in that sense. So I'll open it up to comment from council.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch.
From the public.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Mann. Mr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
President Bacon?
Aye. Our next item is Administration Resolution Number 60, 2024. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the filing of an application for funding through the Commonwealth Finance Authority Multimodal Transportation Fund program in the amount of $1,914,600.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. That was a mouthful to say, and I appreciate that. Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Council President. This grant application is for $1.9 million from the Commonwealth Finance Authority's Multimodal Transportation Fund. And will go towards the streetscape improvements planned along Juniata Street between Stevens Avenue and Rockland Street. The city has engaged the public for quite a while now on this. Numerous community events, going out into the community to get feedback from the residents of that area, what they're seeking in regards to the safety improvements that are to take place along that particular corridor. What I've been told is that this funding would generally prioritize raised intersections, striping, lighting, and other improvements to hopefully slow traffic speeds, create wider turns, improve sight lines, among other things. And I will hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hirsch. I want to point out something. I know that Director Stephen Campbell is not here with us this evening, but from our committee meeting, I thought it was interesting to note that through the public engagement, he noted that the scope, it became clear that the scope should actually be expanded for this project, and so that's why these grant funds are especially needed, and also that should the city not receive the full grant funding, the projects will still move forward, but simply in phases. My notes are correct, and that, the city wishes to see these projects completed. So, and I appreciated that. Thank you. Any additional comments from council? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Rudd?
Aye.
Mr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
President Bacon?
Aye. The next item is Administration Resolution Number 61, 2024. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster requesting a Safe Streets for All grant program in the amount not to exceed $500,000 from the United States Department of Transportation to be used for supplemental planning of the City of Lancaster Vision Zero Action Plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Hirsch again.
Thank you, Council President. This grant application is for stated $500,000 from the Safe Streets for All grant, which would specifically focus on the Safe Routes to School program, focused on making sure children have safe walking and biking routes to school. If you recall, the city previously received the $12.7 million Safe Streets for All grant as a part of our Vision Zero initiatives, and this funding would supplement that previously awarded funding to focus specifically on safe routes to schools on the high injury network. Interventions being considered include a walking audit, designating or displaying safe routes for kids to go to school, and studying other policy changes.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hirsch. Are there any additional council comments on this resolution?
Council President,
Councilor Ahmed.
thank you, and I just wanted to thank the city for applying for this grant, as well as the Public Works Department. As a pedestrian, pedestrian safety is very important for all of us, including children going to schools, and I hope that we continue to put a focus on pedestrian safety, not just at school walkways, but across the city as a whole.
Thank you. Further comment from council? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Rudd?
Aye.
Mr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
President Bacon?
Aye. And last on our legislative agenda is Administration Resolution Number 62, 2024. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving the raising of the Puerto Rican flag to mark Puerto Rican Heritage Month as brought forth by the Lancaster City Council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. This resolution came up through the Committee of the Whole. An application was entered on behalf of City Council by Council Arroyo for this flag raising. The date of the flag raising shall be November 19th. The backup date is November 20th in case of inclement weather. Councilor Arroyo, do we know the time yet for that? We're well in advance.
I believe it's going to be 10 a.m. or
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
I can confirm for you in 1 second. 10:30.
10:30. Thank you very much. And as always, I'll remind any organizations that wish to fly a flag at City Hall, please do submit your applications in a timely manner. They should come in at least 120 days in advance so that we have an opportunity to approve them. Are there any additional council comments on this resolution? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Madden.
Aye.
Mr. Roy.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
President Bacon.
Aye. That concludes our legislative agenda this evening. The next item on our agenda is public comment. This is open for comment about issues that were not previously on the agenda this evening.
Council President.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
There's one more agenda item that got added a little late. Sorry. It's
Hi,
resolution
I just kept right on going. Wow. I apologize. I do have an older copy of our agenda in front of me. There's one more item on our legislative agenda. And would you believe it's Administration Resolution 63, 2024? Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the city to enter into a reimbursement agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to use congestion mitigation and air quality improvement funding for the Lancaster Bike Share Program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is also coming through Public Works. Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to clarify, this was a late addition to the agenda, wasn't heard at our committee, but can be added with the consent of Council President.
Which I did and then promptly forgot about, so sorry.
All good. So we did receive that. The resolution is very similar to Resolution 60 and 61 in that it's essentially just a procedural vote to authorize the city to seek grant funding. And City Engineer Cindy McCormick is just going to give a brief kind of summary of what the grant is.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. So this is a grant through the Lancaster County Metropolitan Planning Organization. They authorize funding, so this is actually not a grant application. This is funding that we have been allocated, and this is just executing the reimbursement agreement. The reimbursement agreement is with PennDOT because they're the ones that administer the funding. So as you're all aware, we have a bike share program. We received approximately $100,000 in 2023 from the same program. Since then, that allocation of funding, we worked with the Lancaster County MPO and adjacent municipalities that are also interested in the bike share program, and developed a phased program of deploying more bike share locations throughout the city, as well as in East Lampeter Township and Manheim Township. So we created an ask to the MPO for this, amount of approximately $1.7 million. And the MPO did approve that funding, which would fund each station, bike share station, for a period of 3 years. So this is a program that is meant to get the bike share off the ground, and then eventually it would roll into sponsorships would be needed to fund the program moving forward. We have since executed the intermunicipal agreements with East Lampeter and Manheim Township. East Lampeter has executed their agreement, and Manheim Township will be doing that shortly as well. So the city will be administering this grant for those bike share stations. We anticipate there'll be 15 stations in the city. We're also going to be adding e-bikes to the bike share program as well. 6 stations in East Lampeter and 15 stations in Manheim Township if it is built out to the full phasing plan that we initially proposed. So this ask is just to execute that agreement with PennDOT so we can take advantage of the funding.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And just to clarify, council received a presentation about the expansion of the bike program several meetings ago. This is that plan.
Exactly.
Okay, so we haven't seen that before. Thank you. Any additional council comments?
Thank you for the clarification on that.
Any comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Meadow.
Aye.
Mr. Roy.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
President Baker.
Aye. And now, that concludes our legislative agenda this evening, right? Okay. We now move to our second public comment period. This is open for comments about issues not previously on the agenda this evening. Duration of comments is limited to 3 minutes, and speakers should begin with their full name and their block of residence for our meeting record. If anyone's wishing to make a public comment this evening, I invite you to the podium at this time. Right. Hearing none, hearing and seeing none, we'll close that public comment period. We'll now move on to the report of the mayor. Mayor Sraji.
Thank you, City Council, and good evening. For many months, Ms. Irene Grievous has attended public meetings in the city of Lancaster to voice complaints about the city's treatment of her and her properties. I would like to take this opportunity to respond. As you may know, Ms. Grievous owns multiple rental properties in the city, and the city has received and acted upon multiple complaints from residents regarding those properties. The complaints have included rodent and insect infestation and other property maintenance violations implicating health and safety concerns for tenants in the community. The city has also been notified of a child with an elevated blood lead level residing in one of Ms. Grievous' rental properties. City inspectors have responded appropriately to address the violations in all instances. Second, Ms. Grievous has one rental property in particular that the city had to administratively condemn in 2021 because of a rodent infestation and other property violations. The city also had to file a public nuisance complaint against Ms. Grievous in the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas because of the rat infestation. Ms. Grievous appealed the condemnation, and the Housing Appeal Board denied her appeal. The property remains condemned because Ms. Grievous has not submitted a satisfactory building permit application to bring the property into compliance with city code and lift the condemnation. Third, in reaction to the city's enforcement of its property codes, Ms. Grievous has filed complaints and counterclaims against the city in multiple forums. No court or agency has found her complaints to have merit. Ms. Grievous has filed at least 3 complaints against the city with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission disputing the city's response to some of the violations on her properties. The commission investigated and dismissed each of Ms. Grievous's complaints because the commission found no evidence that the city discriminated against Ms. Grievous. Ms. Grievous filed a counterclaim and numerous motions in the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas in the nuisance action, alleging that the city has discriminated against her and that the court should lift the condemnation. Recently, Ms. Grievous filed motions in the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas seeking to prohibit the city from inspecting and issue citations on her properties and to quash the condemnation. The court denied her motion. Instead, the court fined Ms. Grievous for sending a harassing email to a city staff member and entered an order requiring Ms. Grievous to bring the condemned property into compliance with city code. Ms. Grievous also filed a complaint in federal court against the city of Lancaster. The federal court found that Ms. Grievous was inappropriately attempting to remove to federal court issues that were already being litigated in the Court of Common Pleas simply because she did not like the decisions of the state court. The federal court abstained from hearing from Ms. Grievous's federal complaint until the county court concludes its case. Finally, Ms. Grievous has complained about the allocation of city resources, specifically related to housing staff and their status. It must be made clear that Ms. Rivas has cost taxpayers thousands of dollars in the way of staff time and legal expenses to respond to her numerous claims of violation and repeated meritless legal filings. That concludes my report, Council President.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sarachi, for that update. Apologies. The next item on the agenda this evening is the report of the President of Council. At this time, I don't have any additional report to give. We'll move on to any council comments. Council comments. All right. Hearing none, having reached the conclusion of our agenda, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.